Hello. What episode? I don't know what episode we're on now.
This is
Lucky number
lucky
seven.
number
Lucky number
seven,
seven
Easter
on
Sunday.
Easter Sunday, by the way.
Mhm.
I think we're going
Yeah.
to discuss a little bit about the importance of self-improvement, along with self-development. And I think you said you're going to have an article that's coming out soon that's going to address this too, right, Jay? Okay.
Yes, I'll be talking about self development, self improvement, the importance
And
of
there was a
self
quote. There
development.
was a quote you wanted to
Yeah.
mention to the audience. What was that?
Yes, it's what started the thought process was the late Jim Rohn, who is a philosopher, business philosopher, but he always had some deep thoughts and deep quotes, and I have a lot of his books. But one of the things that when I woke up this morning, it just popped in my brain that he said formal education will make you a living, but self education will make you a
Mm-hmm.
fortune. And so that rung true to me, and I said, you know what, self improvement and self development. So what separates the good from the great? What's different between formal
Mm-hmm.
education and self education? And so formal education will make you a living, but self education will make you a
Yeah.
fortune. And I
Okay.
want to
I was
talk
going to
about
ask,
that.
for someone that can't quite interpret what that quote actually meant, could you break it down? Can you go ahead and break it down for someone that might not comprehend what he's saying there?
There are people that um, spend $100,000, $200,000 to make
Mm-hmm.
$25 an hour. So formal education, does that prepare you to be rich or to be an entrepreneur, or does it prepare
A
you to be
worker.
a worker? Sometimes when you just really look at the math is not mathing. And so with self education, it makes you a fortune. So those life lessons, those things that you learn that you didn't learn in school, are those the things that you lean on the most? Those are the really, really hard lessons, when you get people, you don't go through life,
Mm-hmm.
they say you grow through life, right? And so it's those hard things that you learn in your lifetime. So self-education can make you wealthy. And there's a reason why college and school, that financial education is really, really small. And so that's something that you have to educate yourself on. I'm amazed that when I talked about in last podcast, 70% of America is not
Mm-hmm.
prepared for retirement. Once again, do the math. There's very little financial education that's taught unless you go teach yourself or you learn it yourself. And so self education prepares you
No,
for
wait.
retirement.
They
Formal
they always told
education.
us that you got to go to school, you got to get a degree, you got to get that piece of paper. So why am I hearing something different now? They always told us that. That's what the American dream told us. You go to school, you get a good job. Why are we being sold that? And what you're saying? I mean, you've kind of broke it down. It's a little different, but why weren't we told that?
Well, who's going to work? Right? So you
That's
need the
true.
workers, right? So if you don't go beyond what you're taught, then you'll wind up being told what to do, being having to
Mm-hmm.
ask somebody for something. This is the reason why I was always attracted to entrepreneurship or online businesses, because with online businesses,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to ask anyone. You're automatically the CEO. You're the captain of your ship. In the Air Force, we used to say, about your life, the bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the
True.
pilot. I mean, you get
Yeah.
to fly the plane. You have to know that up front, is that, as I talked about last week, when people really think about it, how long do you want to work? Do you want to retire longer than you work, or do you want to work
Right.
longer than you retire? The earlier you figure that out, if you want your retirement, you don't want to work till you're 70. If you live to 85, you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
work till you're
No.
75 and then you have 10 years left.
No.
Right? You want as much of that time to be leisure time and lifetime and memory and wealth building, and leaving something for somebody to know you were here and you made a difference. The longer you do that, you can't do that
So what
at
what
work.
advice would you have for someone who has retired? Say they're 60, they just retired, and They don't want to work for anybody anymore, but they want to find they want more. I won't necessarily say find their purpose, because obviously we need more deeper of context to understand what you could give to them as far as tips. But someone that just says they want to do more, they want to self improve. You know, they live their life, but they feel like there's some more that they can accomplish. What tips would you give to someone in that situation?
Well, you're never
Okay.
too old to make a difference. Never. They say you don't become a success, you're
Hmm.
attracted. And what that means is that when your light is shining, somebody will ask you, "Hey, why is your light shining?" And people,
Hmm.
you attract people into your light. There are things, as the longer you're on this earth, it's
Right.
some life lessons, right? And so it's the way you present it. And so there'll be people that present themselves to you, and that's how you make a difference in the world, is by sharing your knowledge. And my pastor used to say, he said, Jay, he said, sometimes be a blessing instead of needing a blessing. Right? If every time somebody walk up to you and say, pray for me, then you're not living right.
That's a good point.
It has to be the
That's a good
opposite.
point.
Right. So sometimes just be a blessing, not need a
What
blessing.
advice would you have for someone who's probably in school right now, and they came across this video, and they heard you say, basically how the formal education, of course, is necessity, but self education, self improvement may be more important. What advice would you have for someone sitting in their class right now? They came across this and heard it. What would you give to them as far as tips?
Oh, I have to go deep in my rap closet, in my arsenal. I have
No,
to
Jay
do like
Z.
this with Jay-Z.
Okay.
Jay-Z. So, what Jay-Z said is, he said, in life, people emulate the end result,
Mm,
not the process. What that means is Kobe
mm,
scores 81, right? Kobe scores 61. People emulate that, but they don't emulate. He worked his
right.
whole life to get do that. People want to be a rapper, but they don't want to understand all the details that go in it. But they'll wear the
Mm,
shoes and the headband and everything. They can emulate it. If you want to be successful in life, people love to emulate the end result, but
mhm.
not the process. And so it's being a master of your craft. And so that's the reason, I started this group. Is I tell people all the time, what separates me from a lot of people is, I always say I'm relentless.
I believe it. I believe it.
I
Yeah.
study a lot. I study a lot. I read a lot. I have a library in my house, not hundreds of books,
Thousands.
thousands of books, and I've read them
Every single
all,
book. You've read every single book in
thousands,
there.
every one of them. I always say success leaves footprints. What that means is, if somebody you find that you want to be
Mhm.
mentored by, and they left a footprint. So let's say MLK. So I look back at MLK and
Right.
say, well, who did he follow? Which was Dr. Benjamin Mays. Dr. Mays was president of Morehouse College. So when you look at his readings, it basically, you can see a lot of things that MLK said was Benjamin Mays. Benjamin Mays knew
Mm,
Gandhi.
okay. It all
And
ties
so he went
together.
to India way back
Okay.
in the 1920s, right? And so when you look at success, I studied like people that, motivation. And so when you look at motivation, you look at like the motivational speakers now. Well, when you go back like maybe 80, 100 years, Norman Vincent Peale was really one of the fathers of motivation. Dale Carnegie. When you go back to that, all the way back to the 1899, was a guy named Orison Swett Martin, who founded Success
Oh,
Magazine. I went back, bought every single one of those magazines from 1899 all the way to
every single
1927. I
edition.
have them all in my
Is it monthly or is
all
it
of those
yearly that they come
editions,
out?
and I
Mon-
it
How
was
many
monthly.
magazines?
And then from there were lots of authors. So when you look at this, all of the lot of
Mhm.
quotes, motivational quotes and stuff, I go back to all of those quotes. But I could give you a dissertation on a lot of books, a lot of different things, but that's the level of detail you have to go to. And it's the same with the stock market. So when I decided to do this, that's what I do now. I
Right.
study that stock market like like
Right.
my life depends on it. So when I'm showing people things, I try to simplify it. And so that's one of the details I learned in the military is making hard things simple. And so if I can just share that knowledge, but people have to be ready to receive
Hmm.
it. And so that's why I don't go seeking people. I say people
That's
will
true.
self select. When you encounter me, you will get a first class education. But that's the thing I do. I mean, I enjoy the reading, the books, and all of those things because you can never learn enough. And, there's always a lot of smart people, but I'm enough to know what I'm talking about when it comes to certain things. And so if I think I'm not up to par, I'll make sure that I do my part. So those are the things that people don't see is that I'm very disciplined and I will, I go to that level of detail to read a lot of books and to be well read. And that's why I said self-education. I knew that early in my 20s and it has since paid me back a
I
million
think I
times
think right
over.
now this is probably the best time for someone to get that type of advice. Because if I think of what a college student at this moment is consuming, obviously schoolwork, right? So it seems like your advice would be obviously you can stay in school and pursue the career that you have planned or whatever you've decided to do, which is fine. But after that, I think about what they may do. Of course, they may study everything within that field to obviously graduate, but they may consume TikTok, they may consume social media, which is not a bad thing. We all need that. But I think what you're telling us is we probably need to read more to keep our brain operating, keep it moving. And I say we, I'm not in school anymore, but they probably need to do that because, like you said, it just keeps that momentum, it keeps it going to where they're fully prepared for any situation. It's self-taught, it's self-education. I think right now we have social media, we have TikTok. It's so quick that we want to access everything so fast. Just give me the summary. Even in school, we found ways to use Spark Notes. We would cheat. We'd use Spark Notes and give me the summary. Let me get to summarize all this. I don't want to read all this. And ultimately, it's probably very detrimental to us, our own personal development, to not do so. So would you say that would be the main advice you would provide to someone in that situation, even younger, is to read, 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 read?
Yeah, and this is what you described the spark notes, the sound bite. Is that's what Jay Z talked about? People they
Hmm.
emulate the
Not
end
the
result,
process.
not the process. The growth is in the process, and so the learning and I would say even for young people, even if you don't read, even Michael Jackson, what made him great
Hmm.
is he studied the
Yes.
masters. He said that. This is why he knew Fred Astaire, Ginger Rock. He went back and watched all the black and white videos of all the great dancers, all the great entertainers. He knew everything about them, every shred of it. And so when Michael Jackson hit the stage, he was an accumulation of a wealth of entertainers, and he was the ultimate entertainer. Michael, he perceived himself. So this is, the thing that makes people great. Look
Hmm.
at Taylor Swift. Every time I hear about Taylor Swift, it reminds me like what Mike Tyson said. Mike Tyson said, "People don't hate on people in
No,
fifth
they
place.
don't. Of course not. They're not. They're
They
not.
hate
They're
on
not terrified
the
by them.
top dog,
They're
right?
not threatened by them. You don't hit on somebody you're not threatened by.
Right.
No,
They're not threatened by it. So Taylor Swift
not
is
at
on
all.
top. She's a master of her craft. And how hard is it to create every single album and every album is number one? Who can do that? And wait a minute, and she writes all her own
Her
songs,
music.
all of it, like 100% of it. How hard is it to do that? And if people could do that, they would have done it already.
Everybody would do it. Everybody.
Right. But so when in the music industry, you have to respect that
Hmm.
she's pulling a Kobe. She's coming out with Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
Every single album is number one. Every
Yeah.
song. And if it wasn't, she'd be crucified.
Oh, of course. Oh, when you get to that point, when you get to the point where
Yeah.
you've gone number one, and now that's your how they view you, respectfully.
Yeah.
The
So if you
second you
have one
don't, people
album,
start to
that's
question.
off.
They start to question you. I think me being someone who is a creative, it's admirable to anybody that's able to create something from scratch, their own work, their own writing, and it to be perceived well. because ultimately you don't do it for the intent for it to be perceived well. You're doing it because it's your art. When you're creative, that's what you're doing. For it to go number one, I mean, you obviously have a formula that works perfectly in your favor, and people should continue to do it, keep pushing it. So, of course, we are talking about being in fifth place. Nobody hates fifth place, and that's just true. You know why nobody hates fifth place? Nobody thinks about fifth place. It's always trying to go for whoever's number one, and it's ironic because we spoke of music. Right now, I'm not in it, but I'm excited because hip hop is kind of it's coming back. The competitive part of it. I think every time Kendrick Lamar does a verse, I don't know if you heard about this lately, but every time he does a verse, when he goes on a little hiatus or something, he comes back and it's like a bomb. And he basically called out the two peers that are always mentioned with him. Yeah, so you got Drake, the Taylor Swift of rap is Drake. So you have Drake who's gonna go number one every time, and I think J. Cole and Kendrick at this point in their careers go number one, but not to the extent where Billboard, you're the number one single, number one whatever. They're not doing that, right? That's what Drake does, and he raps about Michael Jackson. He was one away from Michael Jackson, so next time he does it, he's going to be tied with Michael Jackson or whatever. And then J. Cole, who's kind of like been, in my opinion, my humble opinion, was kind of third, right? They call it the big three. He was third to me. I didn't think he was as brash or as confident as the others were until as of late. And so those two did a song together, and
Mm.
they're trying to, J. Cole says, "Oh, it's the big three," but then he kind of like pushes Kendrick out of it a little bit. It's like, "Oh, me and Drake," now he's saying me and Drake, me and Drake, me and Drake. So now last week, Future had an album who's having some little riff with Drake as well. Metro, who produced the album, had some riff with them as well. They got Kendrick Lamar on the verse, and he decided to say there is no big three. It's just me. So now hip hop it's in a situation where now everyone's like, well, hold on, and now it's going to be competitive again. And so I love stuff like that. Like I love music. So to hear, yeah, nobody thinks about fifth place. Absolutely. You know why that song is number one right now in the country? And it's going to be Kendrick's third and Future's third and Metro's one? It's because somebody was competing for the top spot. Nobody is arguing with whoever's in fifth. He's not saying anything about fifth. He said he's first. So that
Mm-hmm.
statement connected there because that's what's been trending the last week as far as music. Beyonce as well. I mean, we talk about someone going number one, talk about someone challenging herself, creating something different. Yeah, no, the Taylor Swift, Beyonce's, those are in a whole other stratosphere when it comes to creativity. Mm.
Yeah, so studying the master, what separates the good from the great is the discipline and actually worrying about, nobody's going to care about you more than you
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to it. Taking responsibility for yourself, those are the things that anybody should understand. And that's why, time to me is more than money. And that's why I always say, I tell people don't major in minor things, major in major things, right? And I always say, I'm always observing with little things. Little things lead to big things. And so I always say, the things that are easy to do are also easy not to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's easy to read a book, but it's also easy to play PlayStation,
True.
right? And
True.
so those little things make a big difference over the course of time. Here's a something that I thought about this morning, right? And it's managing yourself, which is self improvement. A lot of people say they want to be rich or they want to be wealthy or they want to be a lot of things, but and this is why I thought about Jay-Z, the process. The quote it's not really a quote, but what it says is it says, "Whatever you mismanage, you lose it." And that's why management is so important in the process. So
Mm-hmm.
this is Easter Sunday, and what that means is so whatever, if you mismanage something, you lose it, right? And
True.
so God will never give you what you pray for. He'll only give you what you can manage. And so people pray for a new house, but the apartment is not even up to par,
Right.
right? So he's only going to give you what you can manage. So if you've
Right.
mismanaged your body, you lose it. If you
Right.
mismanage your marriage, you lose it. If you mismanage your job, you lose it. If you mismanage your children, if you mismanage your money, it goes away. So you have to learn how to manage yourself, and that prevents a crisis. And that's how you get self discipline.
Yeah.
This is why self development is important. People argue about they major in minor things, and you don't have to react to everything. So, I live in Florida, and people were reacting to politics, when it goes to the woke mob, and oh, we're going to eliminate Black history and all of this stuff in the schools.
Hmm.
Well, the governor can't stop me from going to Amazon,
True.
buying my own book. I'll educate myself. I don't need him to tell me, right? So why would I even respond or argue to that?
That's a good point.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And so when people, they want you to react to those kind of things, but when you ignore them and you go about your business, then they get
Yeah.
nervous.
They that's funny you say that because yeah, they want you to continue to have dialect about it because it doesn't make you
Right.
actually go do the action of going. Because yeah, if your kids aren't being educated on it, go get those same books. They're still there. You can order them. They're not good
Educate
reading
them
books.
yourself,
Go
right?
get them
Educate
and
them
educate your
yourself.
kids. And that's
Right.
where
So
that makes us probably more dangerous than anything because they are thinking they're under the impression we're not doing that. So
right. So
I
you
think that
educate
works.
them yourself to your level of detail.
Yeah, true.
I would educate my kids more than the teacher would, because my
Yeah, yeah,
expectation
yeah.
would be 10 times higher.
The chapter we wouldn't go over that chapter for just a week. This is
Right.
going to be a development for their entire life. So, because I
Yeah.
mean, in my opinion, my generation, we millennials, we joke about it a lot. When things keep happening, we always say, "Well, that's going in the history books," because it's just the things that have happened in our lifetime from 1990 to whatever it's always going to be adding in. And I don't think every single school book is getting stuff even sometimes past 2013. I graduated high school in 2013. If I go to a high school right now or middle school, they might not have some stuff in there that should probably be in there. So yeah, no, I totally understand that point of view that just teach them yourself. Nobody should be able to limit you from giving that information.
Yeah. There is no limit. When it comes down to financial education, this is one of the last things that a lot of people need to conquer and need to really put some focus on, because you want to have a good life for yourself and for your family. And in this environment, 50 years ago, the days of working for one company, getting a gold watch and having a retirement and then living on a pension is over.
Mm-hmm.
So now, most people don't work for one company for 50 years and then they give them a big going away, and you're there for a reason, and now there is no pensions per se anymore. There's 401ks. You have to put in it. You have to match it. They'll match it if you match it, right? So this reminds me of um, I was talking to a friend today. I said I was going to talk about self development, and I said, I have a friend who is, I call him the mad professor. He has the wild hair like Cornell West, and he's a professor at Boston University right now.
Really?
His hair is like, oh man, yeah, smart cat. So he's like in his 70s now. But he's always had that wild hairstyle,
Like
even
Don
back.
King?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like, and so
Okay.
he was a product of the 60s, and he taught at John Hopkins, when he was 20, 21,
He taught
and
there?
taught there at 20. He's from New Orleans, and Shark Cat, his name is Arturo Pfister. And so Arturo, I was with him in New Orleans, and he was teaching a class, and they were cutting up in the class. It was at the University of New Orleans, and this was before Hurricane Katrina. But that's what got him to into Boston. Now was after Hurricane Katrina he moved. But during the class, I was sitting in there, and we were going to go hang out after his class, and so the class wasn't paying attention or anything, and he drew 3 lines on the board, and everybody was just looking at him, and he goes, hey, this is not high school, this is college, you're paying for this. And he said there's 3 lines on the board, and those 3 lines can be an A or an F. It just depends on what you want to do with it, how
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get there. And so that sparked my brain to really put some thought into it. in school, everybody knows the grading system: A, B, C, D, F, right? Why is there no E in it? And
Because
the
it's the
E,
effort.
yeah, effort
Uh-huh.
based on every individual. Based on everybody's effort, that's where their grade is going to come out on that curve. It's the same with life, same with self development. So the effort everyone makes is where they're going to end up in life. You're going to get an A in life or you're going to get F in life. You're going to get an A in finance, you're going to get an F in finance, and it will show up in the result on your effort.
Well, where's the best place they can get this information to make sure they don't get an F in the game we call life? What are you gonna put on LinkedIn? I know those are some of
Yeah.
your sources. You're gonna
You
have
hit
a go ahead.
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's why I created the Wealth Builders Mastermind group, because it's a like-minded individuals learning how to be wealthy, but it's mindset as well. You have to be prepared to be rich. You have to learn how to be rich. You have to deserve how to be rich, right? You have to learn how to attract money. It's the principle of it. I always say I'm the poorest person in my group for a reason, because if you want to be a millionaire, you hang around millionaires. So I have a lot of friends that are very, very wealthy. And so it's they learn from me and I learn from them. But that's how you get better, is you have people that are where you want to be, and they show you and then you show them a few things about life too. So that's how it works. And so in this group, it's not only that you learn about finances, or you learn about the stock market. I'm going beyond that because I want everyone to be able to learn it like I know it, and to be able to change their families' lives, kids, grandkids, all of those things. And so my goal is an army of 10,000 knowledgeable, well oiled machine
Mm-hmm.
professionals about the
Mm-hmm.
stock market, because that's one of the things that is missing. More than the missing links is that financial piece. And to be able to understand it will really, it is makes creates generational wealth, rather. um, and that's really the ultimate goal, is to leave. If you know something, you know share it, and have leave the world better than you found it. So that's my my whole spiel. But once again, it's self-selection, right? You have to want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Nobody's gonna be forced to. It's up
Yeah,
to you.
exactly.
Totally up to you.
Yeah, I don't go around chasing people. Everybody has a free country, right? So
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have. Like he stated, he'll have a link. He has a LinkedIn as well, but he'll be posting an article that will address a
yeah,
lot of this stuff. But definitely join the group. You'll get these nuggets weekly, and then check out our podcast episode next week.
yeah, definitely. I
All
appreciate it,
right, that's
Roger, and like I said, I love the hair. It's a, I
it. Thank you.
I'm gonna go buy me a wig now.
Wait.
So
I'm gonna let
see
it
if I can
breathe for a
roll
little
with it.
bit, just a little bit. I haven't done
Yeah,
anything to it. I'm gonna let it breathe. I gotta wash it. I'll let it breathe, and then I'll probably do twist or plaits or
yeah, that's what's up. That's
something.
what's up.
All right, man. We can stop
All
the
right.
recording.